So this guy is rich. Like, rich. Now let's call him Quiet Dog. Now Quiet Dog grows up dirt poor in Nigeria, and he wants nothing more than to make big money and have luxury things. So he starts searching for ways to make money. And eventually, as a young dude, he joins a gang of email scammers. It's a group of young guys who get together and they concoct like these Nigerian prince type email scams. So he joins one of these gangs and he works his ass off, sending hundreds of scam emails a day, trying to con people out of their money. And Quiet Dog's good at it, like easily scamming a few $1,000s at a time from people. But over time, he thinks, nah, this isn't good enough. And he sets his sights on a much bigger target. Not people, businesses. So he ditches his gang and he starts building a new team. And they come up with a new type of email scam, which targets mostly American businesses, law firms, small banks, stuff like that. And this new type of scam works. And it works pretty well for him. And he starts making more and more money. But unfortunately for him, around that time, the Nigerian government starts cracking down on these email scam gangs. So he takes a bit of the money he's made and he uses it to relocate to Malaysia. Now in Malaysia, for the first time, he gets access to things he didn't have back home. Reliable internet access, VPN tools, which immediately makes his email scam operation 10 times more effective. And pretty quickly, he's earning more than he's ever made. But Quiet Dog is still like, nah, that's not good enough, because he feels like he has to show everyone he's making big money. So he starts up an Instagram account and he starts posting about his luxury lifestyle. Mostly just him posing, wearing top of the line brand clothes, nice watches, stuff like that. But it works and his Instagram starts blowing up. People love his rich guy lifestyle. But Quiet Dog is still like, nah, it's not good enough. Because a few years later, he moves to Dubai, the absolute capital of luxury bullshit. And here is where he steps up his online business scams. And by this time, he and his crew, with each scam, they're making $1 to $5 million a couple of times a week. And this is where his Instagram posts get really flashy. Like here he is leaning on a Bentley, leaning on a Lamborghini, leaning on a Rolls Royce, taking trips to exotic places, flying in private jets, and lots of shopping. And his followers are way into this, like he is such a rich guy. In fact, they like his luxury posts so much, his Instagram hits 2.5 million followers. Now, of course, a lot of his fans are watching him spend millions and millions of dollars on stuff, and they're wondering, what the hell does this guy do for a living? And he always just brushes this off and just says he's a real estate developer. I mean, he put it right there in his Instagram bio. But at some point, brands start noticing his success. And he starts doing brand collabs with luxury brands. Versace, Burberry, Louis Vuitton, and his personal favorite, Fendi. In fact, he collaborated with Fendi so much, on his birthday, they decide to surprise him and send him a cake as a gift. And on the cake is a little figurine of him next to a bunch of Fendi bags. It's adorable. And Quiet Dog loves this. In fact, he's so excited, the first thing he does is he takes a photo and he posts it on his Instagram so his 2.5 million followers can see it. And that is where he screwed up, because this cake is going to be his downfall. So a week after Quiet Dog's birthday, boom, the FBI arrests this guy. Let's call him the Canadian. Now the Canadian is one of Quiet Dog's email scam business partners, and the FBI had been tracking him for a while. So they arrest the Canadian and they confiscate his phone. And they see he's been Snapchatting back and forth with Quiet Dog. And at this point, they don't really know who Quiet Dog is, but they find his Instagram and they see all the big money, luxury, Gucci, Versace posts. But the FBI still doesn't really know who Quiet Dog is. They don't know his real name. They only know that he's a really rich guy who Snapchats with the Canadian about this email scam stuff. But then they notice Quiet Dog's birthday cake post. So now they have his birthday. And using that, they're able to trace him to a really old visa application he had submitted to the US years ago. That visa application has all of Quiet Dog's personal information on it. So now they know his real identity and everything about him, and they start surveilling him. And months later, Quiet Dog is asleep in his luxury penthouse apartment in Dubai, when suddenly, kapow, the Dubai SWAT team kicks in his front door and they arrest him. And in 6 other simultaneous raids, they arrest 11 members of his email scamming crew. And they confiscate $40 million in cash, 47 smartphones, 21 laptops, and 13 luxury vehicles. And allegedly, over all that time, he and his email scam group scammed over $456 million. So they extradite Quiet Dog back to the US, he goes to trial, he takes a plea deal, and he gets 11 years in prison. Shout out to Nigeria. So one day, this guy Tim, he goes on a game show, and he says this.
What's the biggest mistake you made at your wedding?
Honey, I love you, but said I do.
3 years later, after this episode airs, his wife is found unalive. And this video of Tim suddenly starts trending. Why? So Tim is actually married to this woman, Becky. And they've been married 11 years and they got a couple of kids. But one day he goes on Family Feud and he makes a joke about hating his wife. And everyone laughs and people dismiss it as typical boomer humor. But maybe it wasn't, because about a year after the game show, Tim and Becky start the process of getting a divorce. I guess they had been fighting a lot and now they can't stand each other. So Tim moves into a house about a mile away. And now they're separated, but they're still fighting. A lot. Like fighting over custody, fighting over money, fighting over the house. He files a protective order against her for stalking and harassing. It gets denied by a judge. She files a protective order against him. It gets denied by a judge. So finally, a judge orders just for Tim and Becky to stay away from each other unless they're dropping off the kids. A judge also orders Tim to return a 9mm pew-pew that actually belongs to Becky, and that pew-pew will become important later. Now during this time, Becky starts dating someone new, who we'll call New Guy, and things seem to be going okay with New Guy. They're getting along well. They even have a little romantic evening at her house on Valentine's Day, so she's trying her best to move on. Regardless, about a week before Tim and Becky's actual divorce hearing, Tim finally snaps. Now it's a normal night, and the kids are at Tim's house, but they're asleep. So Tim gets Becky's 9mm pew-pew, and he sneaks out of his house while the kids are still sleeping. And he gets a blue bicycle he has, one that has no reflectors on it, so no one will spot it. And he discreetly pedals all the way to Becky's house. Then he climbs up the side of her house to her upstairs window, and he pries it open, and he creeps inside. Then he makes his way over to Becky's room, and boom, he kicks the door down. And Becky wakes up, and she panics, and she grabs her phone, and she runs into the bathroom, and she tries to dial 911. And then she turns around to shut the door, and blam! Tim shoots her, knocking the phone out of her hand before she could complete her dial. Then he shoots her 13 more times. Then he leaves. He doesn't steal anything, he doesn't mess anything up, he just leaves. And unfortunately, Becky's father finds her the next day, and she doesn't make it. And of course, police look into this, and immediately Tim is their #1 suspect. But he has an alibi. He's like, no, I was watching my kids that night. But police are not buying it. They get a search warrant, and they search his computer, and they find a bunch of stuff. They find that he set up a fake Facebook account recently to look at bikes for sale, specifically bikes without reflectors. Then they search the area around his house, and they find that someone ditched a blue bike, one without reflectors. They also go through his search history and they find that he Googled things like how to make a homemade pistol silencer and how to clean gunpowder off your hands. You know, stuff that murderers search for. They also find that on Valentine's night, the night Becky was at home with her new guy, Tim had Googled New Guy's license plate number and car VIN number over 200 times. I guess he had seen New Guy's car there and he was trying to figure out who this person is who was doing his ex-wife. Police also find shell casings connected to the murder weapon and just a bunch of stuff. So Tim is arrested, here's his mugshot, get a haircut, hippie, and he's charged with first-degree murder, he goes to trial, he's found guilty, and he's sentenced to life. So I wonder if saying I do is still his biggest regret. So this guy, his name's Eric, and Eric has finally met the love of his life. This woman, Sam. And they hit it off and they get engaged, and finally one day they get married. They get married on the beach, it's nice weather, the wedding seems to go pretty well, everyone has a good time. And at the end of the night, they get in one of those street legal golf carts, and their brother-in-law drives them back to their room. So they're driving in this golf cart, up the road, back to the room, and suddenly, bam, a speeding car comes out of nowhere, slamming into the back of the cart. And it flips it several times, and it just destroys the cart. And Eric and Sam and brother-in-law are messed up real bad. So paramedics show up and they take Eric and brother-in-law to the hospital. But unfortunately, Sam doesn't make it. Now the driver of the car that hit them is this woman, who we'll call Speedy. Speedy was driving drunk, so they throw her in jail, and here's her mugshot. Meanwhile, Eric, he's all messed up. He's got a brain injury, he's got a bunch of broken bones, not to mention he lost his wife on their wedding day. Now eventually he recovers, and he gets back on his feet, and he immediately files a wrongful death lawsuit against Speedy and some of the bars she was drinking at that night. But here's where the story gets weird. Eric's mother-in-law, Sam's mom, who we'll just call mother-in-law allegedly sees that Eric is suing these places, and she gets upset that Eric is working on these lawsuits without her. So Eric, who seems like a nice guy, he makes her a formal offer. Like, okay, if I win any money from this lawsuit, I'll give you 50%. But mother-in-law is not happy with this offer. She says it's vague, the way it's written is unclear, she's worried she won't actually get her fair share of the money. Regardless, Eric moves forward with the lawsuit. And months after the golf cart accident, Eric finally reaches a settlement with some of the bars and the insurance company. We don't know how much they agreed to pay him, but it's speculated to be in the millions. Now, by law, in South Carolina, where this happens, when someone dies, their spouse controls the estate by default. So Eric now controls all this money he's getting in the settlement. But on the day they're supposed to have a hearing to approve this settlement, mother-in-law files a motion to intervene, and she tries to contest the validity of her daughter and Eric's marriage. You know, the wedding we all just saw. The wedding of which there are a million photos online. She's arguing that marriage is not legit, and she allegedly wants Eric removed as representative of Sam's estate. I'm guessing she doesn't want him controlling all that settlement money. It sounds like she wants to control it. Yikes. Meanwhile, Speedy, to this day, is still in jail, waiting on her trial. Womp womp. Shout out to South Carolina. So this little dude, let's call him 16, because he's 16. Now 16 is in the back seat of a car, and it's going 100 miles an hour, and he's being chased by a maniac, and he is scared out of his mind. So one night, it's 16's birthday, and he's hanging out with a group of friends and their younger brothers. And there's 6 of them, and collectively, we'll just call them the boys. So the boys are hanging out one night, they're having a sleepover, and they start playing a game where they dare each other to do stuff. And eventually, it's this kid's turn. We'll just call him Mooney. So it's Mooney's turn to be dared, and one of the boys dares him to play Ding Dong Ditch, and Mooney agrees. Now, one of the boys has a car. We'll call him Driver. So all 6 of them pile into Driver's car, and they cruise around the neighborhood looking for a house. And boom, that's when they find the perfect one. They know the kid that lives there, he's a friend, he'll think it's funny. So Driver driver stops the car and Mooney gets out and he runs up to the door to ring the doorbell. Meanwhile, inside the house, the homeowner, who we'll just call Mad Max. Max has really been trying to relax. It's been a long week, he's been drinking all night, he just wants to be left alone. And suddenly, Max's doorbell rings, jolting him awake. And he's like, who in the is ringing my doorbell this late? So he goes to the door and he opens it, and that's when he sees Mooney's bare butt mooning him. And Mooney laughs and he runs away, and Max does not think this is funny. So he rushes outside, but Mooney, he's already made it back to the car. Now, it's around this point when the boys see Max, I'm guessing, that they suddenly realize this house isn't their friend's house. It's a stranger's house. They ding-dong ditched the wrong person. So they realize this and they're like, oh shit, and they speed away. And they're down the road a bit, probably laughing, talking about what just happened. And all of a sudden, bam, driver sees headlights in his rearview mirror. Someone's behind him. No big deal, probably just a car passing. But this car starts getting close, and one of the boys in the car finally realizes it's Max, the guy from the house they just pranked. And Max is still pissed off. So the boys are like, oh my god, he's following us. So they start yelling at Driver to make it to the freeway, because they think maybe they can lose Max there. So Driver heads to the freeway, and Max speeds up right behind them. And then, pow, Max nudges their car with his car. So they go faster and try to escape, but Max just keeps speeding up behind them. And pretty quickly, Max is going top speed, around 99 miles an hour. And the boys, they're going as fast as they can to keep away from him. And they are freaking out. And then boom, Max rams his car into the back of the boy's car really hard. He rams him so hard, in fact, that Driver's head whips into the window and he blacks out. So there they are, the boys, and they're stuck in this car, going faster than 99 miles an hour, with a driver who's now passed out, and they are terrified. And that is when Max's car pushes their car off the road and into a tree. And the car is totaled, and the boys are messed up really bad. But Max, he doesn't stop his car to check on him. He doesn't get out. He doesn't even pull over. He just drives himself straight home. Meanwhile, back at the crash site, paramedics arrive, and they find the boys, and there are 6 of them. 3 of them have moderate injuries, but the other 3 are in critical condition. And unfortunately, those 3 don't make it. Now, luckily, when their car crashed, there were multiple bystanders who saw it happen. And at least one of them sees Max driving away, and they decide to follow him all the way to his house, and they report him to the police. So police, they go to Max's house, they arrest him, here's his mugshot. So Max goes to trial, he's found guilty of 3 counts of first-degree murder, and he's sentenced to life. It's a sad story. Shout out to Corona, California.